Throughout this season of Lent, we've been looking at various psalms. Help wanted, finding hope for troubled souls. That was our theme. And so each Wednesday we looked at a psalm that was reflective, confessional. And tonight we look at Psalm 22. We use it because Jesus did. As we consider all that Jesus experienced in approximately 20 hours that was captured in Luke's gospel as we read it over this evening, and there are certain things that just jump out. And even though for many of us we hear this same account year after year, it still strikes us, doesn't it? I mean, beginning in the garden when he was betrayed. The garden scene makes me cringe. Judas arrives, having been with Jesus through so much. And we can never understand his motives. Some suggest it was financial, for the money, or because of how money was used. Others, the trajectory of Jesus' ministry, that for Judas he wasn't fulfilling what was hoped. But Luke captures it for us. In chapter 22, verse 3, we heard these words tonight. Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot. The name Judas now is equated to sinister. He's such a Judas. Betrayal hurts. Have you been betrayed? Has a trusted friend done something intentionally or even unintentionally that caused hurt? Sometimes people act in self-interest and it can cost us. And when it's a close friend, the pain cuts that much deeper. And we look at Judas and think, how could you? How could you betray Jesus? How could you do something that would lead to everything that happened? But have we ever betrayed? Have we ever betrayed a loved one? Have we ever caused that kind of hurt? Have we ever, as we look inwardly and think about our own lives, have we ever even betrayed Jesus? Have we betrayed his trust? Have we betrayed our calling to be his people? On an evening like this, as we think about our own confession, we can't look at the cross and simply cast all of our anger and all of our disappointment and all of our frustration with all of these details of this scene on Judas. We have to recognize our own sin sent him there. He was betrayed. He was also denied. Peter's denial is equally striking. Jesus arrested in the garden, and the disciples all take off running. Mark's gospel includes the detail that one dropped his linen robe and ran away naked. But Peter tried to stay with Jesus. He wanted to follow Jesus, but he was also concerned for himself. But Peter was warned. I think that makes it all the more significant. Jesus said, "You will deny me." And Peter, bold Peter, I never would do that. Even if I had to die with you, Lord, I never would betray you. I would never disown you. And yet there it is. 3 times. And Luke includes the detail of all 3 times. And it's progressive, right? It kind of seems like he's getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer, but people keep pointing fingers and hearing his voice and hearing his accent and recognizing him as a Galilean. And each time, I don't know him. I don't know what you're talking about. Luke also includes this detail at 22, verse 61. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the saying of the Lord. Like, how was that lost on him leading up to this? He heard it. It wasn't that long ago. He said, there's no way that happens. You think after the first one he would have remembered what Jesus had said, but it took the look of Jesus to bring those words back. I mean, I don't think we can understand fully Peter's situation, the fear that he felt, the trial that was happening, the kangaroo court of it all, the way that it was progressing, and his fear for his own safety that must have been part of it. But come on, Peter. I mean, you're the guy that walked on water. You're the guy that was ready to go. I mean, you hacked a guy's ear off just 2 hours ago. But before we cast too much dispersion on Peter, we must recognize within ourselves, have we denied? Have we denied Jesus? Have we denied our faith? When called upon to stand up with boldness, have we followed through? When we had an opportunity, did we deny it? Did we turn away from it? Denial hurts. When relationships are denied, and there's certain scenes that we've seen in films where, the parent to the child, you're not my son. Go. And how difficult that must be to be the one who is denied. And there's the other things that take place, the crowds shouting, "Crucify him." Pilate succumbing to the will of the crowd and giving in. An innocent man, and he knew he was innocent. But to satisfy the crowd, to avoid an uprising or a riot, I mean, that's a politician doing what sometimes politicians do. But the most significant piece of what Jesus went through was the cross. But the betrayal sent him there. The denial was just a bump in the road relative to the suffering of the cross. And of all the words from the cross, some are taking care of needs. I thirst. Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother. Connecting those two so that Mary would be taken care of. Some of the words from the cross offer hope. Father, forgive them. Words that are almost impossible to understand how they could be spoken by one who's being crucified. Father, forgive them. And then to the criminal, I tell you the truth, you will be with me. Others seem to be a progression of the crucifixion. Into your hands I commit my spirit, and it is finished. But there's one statement that stands out from the rest, and it's the one that's captured in Aramaic. Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's the one that seems deepest in all of the suffering of Jesus as he lived out Psalm 22, the psalm that we just read. David wrote the psalm. There's in the heading that precedes, in our versions, verse 1. And the context for his writing isn't precisely known. He doesn't say, David wrote this on the occasion of. It could have been when he was on the run from Saul's soldiers. It could have been in a time of battle. It could have been any number of times when David's life was endangered. It happened multiple times. We're not sure exactly why David would write that, my God, why have you forsaken me? But we understand how Jesus could use those words to express the depth of the cross. Because isn't that the heart of it? That he was forsaken by God. In that moment, God turned away. To forsake something is to turn away and not intend to return. To separate from, to deny something in a significant way, well beyond what Peter did. Jesus spoke those words encircled by enemies, feeling abandoned and alone, facing death with his hands and feet literally pierced, words that are included in the psalm, with lots cast for his clothing, also there in Psalm 22. So much that's transpiring was spoken in the psalm, but the depth of it in verse 1, my God, why have you forsaken me? But we know the answer to the question. That Jesus was forsaken so that we never would be. See, because of the cross, we're never alone. Through what Jesus did for us, promises of God were fulfilled. A promise first expressed in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, there in the garden, that the one would come and crush the head of the serpent. Promises that God had made, that he will never leave us nor forsake us. Words spoken to Israel on their entrance into the land. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Sometimes we might feel alone, afraid, anxious, abandoned, questioning what God's will is in the moment, what he's doing, where he is, what he intends, what's the answer, where are we going, what's going on, God, where are you in this? But know this without a doubt, he will never leave you. He will never forsake you, and the cross proves it. Jesus was forsaken on our behalf. Even while we were enemies of God, he laid down his life for us. The cross is Jesus' suffering, but it was for our good, to give us access by grace into a restored relationship with God. We'll never be forsaken. Jesus' death was for us. Amen.